Week 7 of fantasy hockey is here. It's actually kind of crazy at this point to think that we're already entering week 7. So hopefully your teams are doing good. And if they're not, please hold strong. And make sure you watch this video carefully for some players to add to help bolster your roster and ultimately put you in a playoff contending position. This is going to be a good video, guys. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. Thanks, Mr. Nightmare. Starting us off with some defensemen I think you need to be adding. It was actually really hard this week to try and pick out some defensemen. We haven't seen many injuries to some of those top-end D-man that have ultimately moved up some players up the depth charts onto the top power play unit or top pair. But there's some eye-opening defensemen that are playing some big minutes just as of last week. Travis Sanheim of the Philadelphia Flyers. I'm shocked to see his roster percentage as high as it is, but he may still be available in some of your 12-team leagues. Right now, he's currently skating on the top pair. His minutes have been outstanding. He played 30 minutes just a couple of nights ago, and he's averaging over 27 minutes time on ice in his last 7 games, while adding 6 points, 36 shots, 33 blocks, and 15 hits so far this season. I don't think the power play one opportunity is going to be there. They seem pretty set on it being Jamie Drysdale, who has actually struggled a little bit over the last couple of games. But still, this power play has been much better than last season, so don't fix what isn't broken. It was broken last year, and it seems to be a little bit better this year. But with Sanheim here, you're getting a guy that's just a peripheral machine playing big minutes, especially with defensemen that are not on the top power play unit. You want guys that are playing at least 23 plus minutes per night, because over the long run, when guys are playing a bunch of minutes, the peripherals are just going to come with it. And that's the very same thing you're going to see here with Ryan Pulock of the New York Islanders. Another guy that's been absolutely munching minutes. They've had some injuries on the back end, especially with Adam Pelech going down with injury. Noah Dobson definitely has the power play one on a lock. I don't think we're going to see Ryan Pulock move up to the top power play unit, but he's just 5% rostered. You're playing in some of those deeper leagues, the 14, 16 team leagues. There's a guy that's going to be 5% roster that's playing 26 minutes per night over the last 7 with 2 games over 29 minutes. He's added 6 points, 24 shots on goal, 37 blocks, and 23 hits over that time. So he is crushing all of the peripheral categories for you. I really like Pulock moving forward, especially if he continues to play these massive minutes. Again, I don't think power play one's an opportunity here, but there are very few power play one defensemen that are actually available right now in the free agency. Moving on to Mario Ferrero. Now, I don't really like Ferrero a whole lot, even though his peripherals are fairly good. San Jose just has a really good schedule for week 7. I want to make sure that if you still have ads remaining in this week, it's definitely a strong strategy. Like, say you have 1 or 2 ads left, you're winning your matchup clearly. Add some of these guys that have very strong schedules this week to help maximize your games played next week. There are a lot of teams with 3 games next week, but San Jose is one of the teams with 4 on 3 off-night games. So he's averaging just over 20 minutes per night with 22 shots, 36 blocks, and 43 hits. So the block and hit mix is very good, especially if you play in those category leagues, you play in those points leagues. Ferrero's going to have a very solid floor entry next week with 4 games in a week that just doesn't have a lot of volume in terms of games played. Lastly, we have Owen Wellweger. You guys can laugh at that one. I'm going to keep going here. I had 5% rostered over on Yahoo. I've been pretty much shouting him out for the last couple of weeks. Well, Owen Zellweger, but Owen Wellweger I've been shouting out for the last couple of weeks. He's been very good. He's moved up to the top pair. His minutes have been very strong. He played 22 minutes in Friday night's game against the Detroit Red Wings with 2 assists. In 15 games this season, he has 7 points, 4 points on the power play. He is top 10 for defenseman shot rate right now at 36 shots on goal, 14 blocks, and then over the last 5 games, playing over 21 minutes per night. You're getting a guy here that's going to be pair 1, power play 1 on a Anaheim Ducks team that honestly is about bottom 5 in terms of offense. But still, the opportunity for a guy that really has no competition on the back end here, given he's already moved up from the 3rd pair to the top pair, and he's held down this power play 1 for the first 15 games of the season, has been very good there. So a lot of interest here from Zellweger, who I continue to shout out, but his roster percentage continues to remain the same. So as long as we keep seeing it at a very low roster percentage, I'm definitely going to continue to be talking about him. Moving on to some of the forward ads for this week. Now, there have been some notable injuries over the last week of fantasy hockey, which I like to pick up in my Everything Has Changed video, which will come out on Monday night or Monday afternoon. So the biggest thing here is Tage Thompson did leave with an injury which means that Dylan Cousins has moved up now to the top line and the top power play unit. Now, he has been on the top power play unit for majority of the season. We know things were put in a blender a couple of weeks ago, but right now with Dylan Cousins, he has moved up to the top line. I still have interest in him. I've had interest in him for pretty much the entire season, given the phenomenal shot and hit mix and how unlucky he's been in terms of his shot percentage. But for right now, he's averaging just under 18 minutes per night, 7 points through the early going, but 46 shots and 33 hits are definitely promising. He has just 3 goals on 46 shots. His shooting percentage is down about 5%, almost cut in half from last season. So a lot to like here from Cousins. We know Tage is currently day-to-day. I'll give an update on Monday on kind of the status we see over the weekend. But as long as Tage remains out, Cousins remains a must-add player. Anthony Cirelli is kind of in the same boat as Dylan Cousins here. Braden Point has been dealing with an injury. He's been on and off on the day-to-day, and it seems like he did miss the last couple of games. And with that, Anthony Cirelli has moved up to the top power play and on the top line. Now, he has a very, very poor shot rate and honestly not good peripherals at all, but the point production has been good. He scored a power play goal against the Winnipeg Jets just the other night. He's averaging under 19 minutes per night, but playing close to 20 per night right now since the injury to Braden Point. 13 points through 18 games, 20 shots on goal, 13 blocks, 8 hits. Now with Point hurt, I only have interest in Cirelli because of that reason. I think if Point does come back, I'm just going to pretty much ignore Cirelli at this point, just because his peripherals are really lacking. But speaking of guys with really good peripherals, Anders Lee, I think it might be his 6th or 7th week on this video, but 13% rostered. He's still playing line 1. He's still playing power play 1. He currently has the best shot per 60 rate in the NHL, just under 14 shots per 60, and his shot rate has been the goal rate has been coming. He scored 2 goals in his most recent game, averaging under 17 minutes per night with 11 points, 55 shots, and 22 hits. He's on pace to be at over 250 shots this season. So a lot to like from Lee, whose offense has been getting better over the last couple of games. And as long as the shot rate continues to scale up, the goals will eventually come. He's the guy that sits in front of the net, gets all those high danger chances you see, and with the mix on the top power play unit, there's a lot of interest here from me. Connor Garland, he is still skating on the top line and the top power play unit. Now, we do know there is some concern with the top line, like if it's JT Miller's line or if it's Pettersson's line. I think it's both like line 1A, line 1B almost. And the minutes are reflective of that, playing under 19 minutes per night. The power play's been a little bit better as of recent. He has 11 points, 3 points in the power play, and 28 shots on goal. This Vancouver Canucks team is one of the best offensive teams in the league, and why not roster a guy who's skating on the top line, on the top power play unit, on a team that should end up as a top 7 offensive team. Lastly, we have Fabian Zetterlund. So 2 reasons why I like him. Well, the first reason is he's honestly one of the most consistent players I've rostered in fantasy this season. Seems like even when he doesn't put up points, he still gets 3 shots and 5 hits. Kind of like a mini Brady so far this season. But we do know that San Jose's schedule is very good this week. So this is a great time to roster him, get 4 games out of him. If you're happy with the production, continue to hold. If not, you can move on to a streamer for the next week. But he has been moved up to the top power play unit, and he's been doing very, very well at 5-on-5. Now adding in the power play reps, it should only help his offense, averaging under 17 minutes per night this year, with 11 points, 37 shots, 38 hits, 17 blocks, crushing all of the peripheral categories while being actually a very, very solid point getting forward. He scored a power play goal in the most recent game since being moved up to the top power play unit. So a lot of love here from Zetterlund, who has a great schedule this week and has been very consistent so far this season. Moving on to the second bout of forwards here, we have Marco Rossi of the Minnesota Wild. So there was an injury to Matt Zuccarello, a growing injury, and it doesn't look like Rossi is going to be the first man up to the top power play unit. It's going to be Ryan Johansson. But what I like to see here with injuries to Zuccarello and Joel Eriksson-Ek, Rossi's now on the top line, centering Matt Boldy on one side and Kirill Kaprizov on the other side. 2 guys that should be close to 100 points this season. Well, Kaprizov's going to be well over, but Boldy might be close to 100 points this season. So Rossi's going to be in a much, much better spot now that he has these 2 elite wingers beside him. And I do think the stint of Hartman and Johansson on the top power play unit is going to be short term, especially if the 2 other guys, Zuccarello and Ek, are going to be out. I have a lot of interest in Rossi with the opportunity to move up to the top power play unit. But at 5-on-5, he's been very good, averaging under 17 minutes per night this season with 5 goals, 14 points through 16 games, adding 32 shots on goal. The point production is definitely going to be there over the next little bit for Rossi, especially centering Kaprizov. But with Boldy now up there, I have even more interest in Marco Rossi. Now, I feel like I've been flip-flopping every week between Coyle Zaka, Coyle Zaka, Coyle Zaka. This week's going to be Zaka. Center, left wing eligible, just 13% rostered. Boston's been shuffling their lines in their power play. Their power play's been horrendous. I saw they're first in the league in terms of power play chances and power play time on ice, and their power play has been struggling a ton so far this season. But hopefully things will start to turn around as they have a ton of power play opportunities every game. Zaka right now is centering Pasternak. We saw some changes, but he's back centering Pasternak on the top line. And he's still back on the top power play unit. He's played over 20 minutes in over his last 3 games, while adding 4 points in that span. He was a 65-plus point player the last 2 seasons, so I still have a lot of love for Zaka here, whose roster percentage just should not be that low. Moving on, we have Will Cooley of the New York Rangers, just 18% rostered right now. He's currently skating on line 3, so there is some risk with no power play time from Goalie, but 14 minutes average time on ice is still pretty good. The big kicker here is the 57 hits. I don't think the 11 points and 29 shots on goal. I think the 11 points are eventually going to regress at some point, but the hit volume has been extremely good. He had almost 260 hits last season, and he's currently on pace to break that with a 334 hit pace. The Rangers continue to play their bottom 6 players more than we expect, especially with the struggles to Zibanejad in the early going. So with Cooley here, as long as he continues to see his minutes scale up to 14, 15, 16 per night, the hits are going to continue to come. So a lot of love from Cooley here, especially if you're desperate for hits in some of your leagues. Moving on to Jonathan Lekkerimäki. I know in our Discord, a lot of the Vancouver Canucks fans are very high on Lekkerimäki. He was the SHL top rookie of the year last year. He won the World Junior MVP last season. And with Lekkerimäki here, he was recalled with the injury to Brock Besser. Now he's just 7% roster, but he is on the top line and he's on the top power play unit, skating with JT Miller's line. And then he's also on the top power play unit. He has 5 goals and 39 shots through 7 AHL games. He's probably one of the highest touted prospects in the NHL going into this season, and Vancouver's best prospect in the minors right now. So hopefully with Lekkerimäki, they give him all the room to run. He scored in his second NHL game. Of course, I had a bet on his first NHL game at plus 380 for him to score a goal, and then he scores in his second game. That's always how it works. But Lekkerimäki here is in a very, very good spot. His shot rate's been really good in the AHL. A lot of it's been on the power play too. So the 5 goals and 39 shots in 7 games is any indication of what to see in the NHL. There's going to be a lot of promise from this kid. Now moving on to Jackson Blake. Now this is for my deep league viewers. Just right wing eligible, 1% owned. I did see Jarvis was taken off the top power play unit and Jackson Blake has now moved up. He's line 3, power play 1 in the first game since move up to the top power play unit. He played 18 minutes and had 7 shots on goal. This Carolina power play has been one of the best, if not the best in the league. We know the Winnipeg Jets has been really, really good as well. But I think over time, maybe we start to see this Carolina power play end up in a top 3 spot in terms of goals for. And I want to be rostering anyone that's going to be on that top power play unit. So a lot of love from Jackson Blake here. If you're in 16 plus team leagues or you have really deep rosters, this is definitely a guy you want to be keeping on your radar. Moving on now to goaltenders, there have been a lot of changes, a couple of injuries that have moved goaltenders up into a starting role. The biggest one here is going to be David Rittich of the LA Kings. Unfortunately, Darcy Kemper was placed on the IR. Like, I just can't get any luck with him so far this season. He's been good, but still, with Rittich here, he goes to an LA Kings team that's been very good to start the season. They're not allowing a lot of shots on goal. They're not allowing a lot of goals. So Rittich should be in line for some pretty good starts moving forward. With Kemper on the IR, it's going to be Rittich. I don't think Copley's going to get many starts. So a lot to love there at just 12% rostered. Now, Peter Kochetkov did leave the game with an injury, and Freddie Anderson's injury said it will be long-term. So for right now, with these 2 goalies injured, Spencer Martin seems to be the next goalie up, who was claimed on waivers by the Carolina Hurricanes. He's just 2% rostered. He didn't have a really good game in relief and hasn't been really good to start the season. But I think any goalie on Carolina that's a top 3 team in the NHL should be in line for some pretty good starts moving forward. Looks like Kochetkov's doubtful to play this weekend, but may return next week. So something to monitor. But if you need a goalie in the short term, Spencer Martin's definitely a guy I would keep my eye on. John Gibson here at just 20% roster. Looks like since his return, he's going to be splitting time with Lucas Dostal. It's been a 1A, 1B type of situation here. I do have some interest, especially with the volume that the Anaheim Ducks give up. Gibson should be in line for like 30 plus shots against per game, which means his save percentage is going to be good, but maybe his goals against average takes a hit. Wins, maybe not too likely, even though he started off 2-0 so far this season. Lastly, we have Tristan Jarry, who I showed out in last video, where he was really good in the minors. got recalled, started last night against the Columbus Blue Jackets, allowed 5 goals on 39 shots. This team's cooked, but still, you're going to be able to get a goalie who should be the starting goalie moving forward. It's going to be interesting to see kind of what happens between him and Nedeljkovic, but I definitely have some interest in Tristan Jarry here, who should be seeing a ton of volume moving forward if he can take back the reins of the starting goalie spot. That will do it for the Week 7 must-add players video. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you leave a like, and if you're new to the channel, please subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I look forward to seeing you all in the next video.